So once again, welcome to everybody. And if you don't remember again, I'm Carol. This is Curtis. He's the pastor here in CCCTO, and he's the English pastor. He has no Chinese in terms of language here.
I just look Chinese. It's so weird how that happened.
So we're excited about this topic on empowering yourself and your community, and so we'll get started, and Joyce is still passing out stuff. Anyway, we'll keep going. This is a picture of our family. My son and daughter-in-law just got married in Labor Day weekend, so August 31st. Oh, wow. So that's Angela, Gabriel, Jesse, and Nathaniel. So we're excited about that. Growing up, I was having these symptoms of sleeplessness, high activity, not being energized, and I was also having bouts of severe depression. So the depression would last like months, like 3 or 4 months at a time. So it was pretty serious, and then I would swing back up into mania, where I would do a lot of shopping, talking a lot, having these wild ideas of, I can write this great book, which I haven't done. But it wasn't until 1994 when I was diagnosed with bipolar, and it was at that time that I finally decided to go see a psychiatrist, and she said that, he said that, I need to take medication. And at that time it was called lithium. And so I said, no, I'm not going to do that. And then it wasn't, fast forward, it wasn't until 2002 where I had my major manic episode. And I ended up in the hospital with the 5150. And then...
What's a 5150?
I was in the hospital. I was in the hospital for 72 hours.
5150 is a mandatory hold that's required by either doctor, in this case, by police.
So after that horrific event, I decided that I needed to take the medication, and it's a lifelong medication, pretty much. So basically, I say that I'm in remission. There's no cure that we know of bipolar as of right now, and so I still see a therapist. After that incident, I saw a therapist for quite a while, and I stopped because things got a lot better, and so I managed with talking to friends and learning more about my illness. And Curtis and I, we just started a support group for caregivers, because now we have somebody in our family who has some kind of mental illness situation. So one thing that was really helpful to us, and you'll hear more about it later, is that when I had my major episode, our church really rallied around us as a family. They brought us meals. They, picked our kids up for, just hang out. They let Curtis take some time off work so that he could take care of our family. So for us, we had a really good experience with the church community coming to help. And so it's just been good for us to start this ministry as co-founders, and just to share what we've learned as a couple, being not only consumers but also caregivers of mental illness. And so that's why we have a passion for this topic.
My story regarding mental illness began when I was 19 years old. Up until that time, I was pretty much normal, healthy, very happy, doing pretty well in life. And when I turned 19, I started to have this strange desire, obsession to start to wash my hands. And that obsession continued to grow to the point where I would actually have red and bleeding hands. And in my mind, what it was that I thought I had germs, and I had to get them off, because if I didn't, that meant if I was working or I was talking to somebody or I shook their hand, I would pass that germ on to them, and I might make them sick. And I spiritualized it as a Christian. And so I thought, well, God knows that I think that there are germs on my hand. So even if there aren't germs on my hand, I think there are. And therefore, if I don't wash my hands, it shows that I don't really care about other people. And God would know that, and God would punish me. And so that was my obsessive thought. I also had compulsions, like always checking the door, not being able to go through a green light. And I would always think like, oh, the light's going to turn red, or I can't go through. And I would just have these really, really strange obsessions. So it got to the point where I was so depressed because of this that I actually did attempt a suicide attempt on my life when I was about 20 years old. But by God's grace and God's mercy, I was able to get the help that I needed. And it was through this help that I'm able to share with other people, and I believe Carol as well, in a compassionate way, because we understand what people are going through. We can say we do know what it's like. Like, we have a very close friend who has OCD, and we can say we do understand what it's like when she has her obsessions and her compulsions. And now that we've started this ministry, it really is a manifestation of what God began in my life over 40 years ago. And 40 years ago, I was actually with my very first therapist, and it was this verse that I thought about as a young believer. And I kept thinking, God's going to heal me, God's going to heal me. And then after God heals me, I'm going to be able to help other people, because I knew this verse. And so I'd like us to say it together. We actually mentioned it earlier this morning, but for our workshop, I'd like to say it. So would you say it out loud with me? Praise be to the God and Father of our Lord Jesus Christ, the Father of compassion and the God of all comfort, who comforts us in all our troubles, so that we can comfort those in any trouble with the comfort we ourselves have received from God. And this is really the passion that Carol and I began with, because we do understand what it's like to go through mental health problems. As Carol has bipolar and depression, I have OCD and depression. And so we began the mental health ministry, and we called it Enlighten, because we really want to shine Jesus' light on mental illness. Even though we go through really hard and dark times, we have seen that even though, and I'm still taking medication for depression, we still believe, even in the dark times, that God's still there. And we believe that God is good. And as we do our ministry, our 3 mission statements are that we want to do it by encouraging people. We want people to know that there's hope. We want to give empathy and friendship. And that's why we started a support group. And we want to do it in an environment of God's love, so that there is this brightness to our hope. There is a genuine desire to see God work in the lives of other people as he's worked in ours. And then we want to educate, and this would help us to break down stigma, the fear and the shame that comes when people don't understand what mental illness is, and the ability for Carol and I to share firsthand what we've learned. And then we also bring in other forms of education to help people understand how they can manage and understand what mental illness is. And then the title of our seminar today is Empowering People to Help Others. And so this is our mission as a ministry, is we want to empower you. So wherever you are, we want you to know you can make a difference. Our desire, we have over 22 churches represented in this group today, and you're all going to get, per church, you're going to get a flash drive. And on that flash drive, it's going to have everything that we talked about today. So if you don't want to take notes, you don't have to. You're also going to get the PowerPoint that we're doing here. So don't worry about taking a lot of notes. But if you do want to take notes, if it helps, makes you feel better, then you can take notes, okay? But we want to empower you. When Karen and I thought first about what is it that we want to do, and this was actually many years ago. We were asked many years ago to do a seminar on depression. And we did it at 2 different churches. And in one case, it was a church where their staff members were dealing with a lot of depression. And in the other case, it was church members dealing with a lot of depression. And one of the things that Carol and I found out was that we had received a lot of care from people. We had received a lot of caring support from others. And this was what we wanted to share with other people. They also encouraged us. They gave us empathy. Even if they didn't go through depression or OCD or bipolar themselves, they were compassionate. As Carol said, my church gave me 3 months off with full pay during that time to help care for my wife. And there are some, I won't point them out, but there are some members of that church in here right now. And so that church just so blessed Carol and I. And then we went on after that with 15 more years of ministry at that church before we came back here to Thousand Oaks. And in all that process, we continue to learn. We continue to learn about mental illness, about how to take care of ourselves, about how to share care with other people. We are still learning. We're still very small on what we know, but we know there's a lot to learn, but we've come a long way as well. And no one has taught me more about these 3 things than my wife. As Carol said, she was put into a hospital on a 5150. She was driving extremely erratic and was picked up by the police, and to protect her, they took her to the hospital. They knew something was wrong. They called me. I could identify with them that she indeed had a medical condition, and they put her into the hospital for 72 hours. Since that time, God has done such amazing things in my wife's life. She actually runs the show for Enlighten. She's the beauty, she's the brain, and she's the brawn. She does it all. I'm just the mouth, but she does all that. So it just happens that these letters, C-E-L, are the same letters of my wife's name. Her name is Carol Esther Lowe, and it just so turns out that way. But in these cases, and each one, what Carol gives to me in our marriage, what we want to give to other people is care and compassion. We want to give empathy, that encouragement that comes through empathy, and the learning that we want to give with love. The Apostle Paul says that I could speak with the tongues of men and of angels, but if I don't have love, I'm nothing. And so we can have all the knowledge in the world of mental illness, but we need love to be able to share it. And so today, Carol and I want to share with you some resources in love that we believe would help you to be able to have a mental health ministry in your community, that you can make a difference. It might be small, it might be bigger, but we want to talk about 2 of them. And the first one is by Mental Health Grace Alliance. This is an amazing organization that helps people like you and me, non-professionals, to be able to learn how to care for ourselves and others with mental health needs. And so I'm going to show you a video right now by their founder, Joe Padilla, and in just 3 minutes, he's going to explain to you the bulk and the foundation of their ministry and of their resources.
When someone's experiencing burnout, anxiety, depression, or any mental health difficulty or disorder, within the church, research shows that it's often hard for these individuals and families to find caring support or even helpful understanding. It's like they come in speaking a different language. But it's also hard for church leaders because only a handful of them ever get any type of training for these types of challenges. So it's not about trying to figure out all that's wrong, but about figuring out what's the right thing to do. Hi, I'm Joe Padilla, I'm with the Grace Alliance, and we provide resources and training for churches to have the right and simple solution to care for these challenging mental health needs. Our Grace Groups are small group curriculums designed to work in any church. We've designed the material by integrating neuroscience and biblical faith values to help bring understanding and practical tools to help life get better. And we often see Grace Group workbooks used for one-on-one discipleship and even for personal use. And over the years, we've heard countless stories how the Grace Groups have changed so many lives. In fact, we have published research showing how Grace Group members not only saw their difficult symptoms decrease and have mental health recovery, but they also saw their faith renewed. And if you know anything about the faith experience with these mental health difficulties, that alone is a clinical testimony. So we have Grace Groups specifically for the family member, and that's called Family Grace, and then Living Grace for those who are personally experiencing these mental health difficulties or disorders. And we also have Redefined Grace, which is written in the language for the everyday college and even high school student. So here's how it works. Grace Groups are designed with a 16-week curriculum, except for Redefined Grace, which is only 10 weeks to work better within the school semester. Now, each topic begins with a faith section. where the group reads a scripture and then a short reflective commentary to see the connection of God's grace within that mental health challenge. Then the group discusses their thoughts and their personal impressions. Then they transition to the facts, which provides science and faith insights with guided questions, and it also facilitates more interesting dialogue. And most of the topics have a tool or exercise for the group to learn together. And then at the next grace group meeting, they can report on how they used it, whether it worked or not, because the tools and exercises provide a groundwork for each person to adapt and discover what works for them. Then it ends with the future section, which has a few summary points and a simple prayer. And that's it. All you have to do is just follow the curriculum and learn together. It's simple and easy. And we have seen our grace groups work alongside professional care, but grace groups are not clinical support groups or meant to replace professionals. It's a simple group experience for healthy discussion and learning. And they're so simple that no one has to be a professional to lead or facilitate a grace group. We provide free online training for anyone who wants to start a group, and we provide grace group leaders with ongoing support, all for free. It's only ordering however many workbooks your grace group needs, and that's how simple it is. Overall, the grace groups exist because it's a user-friendly, small group experience that provides the understanding and speaks the language of what families and individuals are going through. And the heart of it is to show how Jesus is already there in the process and learning to see the grace we already have and let that build into better days. It's a simple way to love people well.
So those last three words is a simple way to love people well. And this is what we believe that you can do, and what we want to encourage you, and what we're doing today in this workshop is that, we said the three building blocks are care, encouragement, and learning. And you, by being here, already show that you care. You care about yourself, you care about others, you care about your community. You're encouraged because you are with other people, and I hope that we are encouraging you. You are encouraging us for sure by being here. And by being part of a community, we encourage and help one another. And you're learning, certainly, by listening to Dr. Strawn, by going to the other workshops, and by being here right now. That this is information that will help you to be able to care for other people in the way that you would feel comfortable with wherever you are. If you go to the workshop, Mental Health Grace Alliance, so this is how we want to walk you through our workshop today, as we're going to share with you the online availability of resources from two different ministries. If you look into your handout or the booklet that we gave to you, you'll see that there's a quick start guide, and it's the same thing that Carol and I are going to be talking to you about here. And so you would log on in the URL to Mental Health Grace Alliance, and then you would go down here over to the menu bar, and then you could read about their different ministries. You could also read about their different books. You can sign up for their weekly blog. You can read past articles that they have. You would learn a lot about mental illness written from people who experience it and people who are experts in learning how to help people with it. If you go there, you will see that they have different books that you can buy. And this book I would highly recommend. It's called Thrive. And it's a book for everybody. It's about how we can improve our own mental health. And if we have any issues in our life, it can help bring recovery. It covers 4 major topics: the physical, the mental, the spiritual, and the relational or the social. And so these are some of the topics that you would cover in the book. You could just study the one that you want, the place where you're at right now. So for example, if you're having trouble sleeping, you might want to do the first section on healthy lifestyle, which is dealing with the physical aspects of taking care of ourselves that leads to better mental health. And so you would learn different topics, and there's many more than these, but how to sleep, eat well, and how to learn to relax. Like, none of us need to know that, right? How to learn to relax, because we're all so chill. But if you're not, that's a great chapter to do. The next chapters are on healthy mind, the mental aspect. How do we renew our mind? How do we change our thinking? How do we begin to have the right kind of thinking that God made us to have? How do we manage stress? Again, those of us who already know how to relax, we don't have any stress either. So those chapters we can avoid. Then there's the healthy faith. Because we were made spiritual people. We were made by a God who knew that we needed him and that we need each other. And so the spiritual life is talked about. How do we know, even when we're going through difficulties, God is good. God is always good, even though life may be very bad. How do we discover hope in the midst of darkness? How do we discover that desire to keep on going? And then what is it to be part of a life-giving community like we are today? What is it like where you live in your church to provide this life-giving community? And then in that community, how do you build healthy relationships? What's your social life like? Like Dr. Strong was saying, if we only go to church once a month, we're not going to build a community. But God made us to need each other all the time and to share with each other and to be in fellowship with each other, to be in communion with each other, to be in communion with him. And so when we do that, of course, being human, being sinful, we're going to have conflict. So he teaches us, how do we deal with conflict? How do we become a source of refreshment to ourselves and to others? And so this is the first book that you could purchase if you go there. And we're not getting any kickbacks, so we're not getting anything back from Grace Alliance. We just believe in their ministry. And so you could look at that. A second book that they have, and this is a small group material called Living Grace. And this book is for people who are going through mental health challenges right now. They're dealing with depression. They may be dealing with bipolar. They may be going through other times of anxiety and mental stresses. And they can come together and they can share with each other over a course of 16 weeks. So this is really good information for a small group material. And you're going to see in just a little bit how you could learn to lead this group. And so this is a Living Grace group. This is for people who are dealing with mental health problems currently, and they would be in a community, a small group, for about 4 months together. The third book that Grace Alliance prepares for is for young people and for college students. Maybe you heard or saw the statistics that about one out of every 5 adults in the world have a diagnosable mental illness in any given year. 1 out of 5. But 1 out of every 4 young people from the age of 18 to 25 have a diagnosable mental condition that is once in every given year. And so for young people, the stressors are even higher. For both Carol and I, our illnesses erupted in our early 20s. And so that's a very common problem when the problems of life are very difficult and maybe you've never lived away from home or you're learning how to deal with things on your own. Life has a lot of stress. And so this is a great book written for young people in a language that they would understand. But Carol and I, our passion is in this book and in these things about how to provide support for people who are providing support for people who are going through mental health problems. What can we do? We needed that. That's why actually how Enlighten got started. Carol and I moved out here 2 years ago to Thousand Oaks, and I had been part of a faith-based support group in Orange County before I moved out. When we came out here, we started looking for one, and we couldn't find one. We went to NAMI, we talked to churches. Nobody had one. And so we thought, well, why don't we start our own small group? And we were going to base it upon the FaithNet group, which is a NAMI group that is in Orange County, but we didn't know what to do. So we started talking to people about what to do. We started talking about the need, and people started encouraging us to keep pursuing it. And lo and behold, we ended up with a seminar. So that's sort of, long story short, that's what happened, and why you're here today as well in our second seminar. And so this is our passion, is to encourage people to know how to care for themselves and to care for others who are going through mental health challenges. So this book is also 16 weeks. It's also for a smaller group. It's also something that you would do regularly. And some of the topics in those 16 weeks would include building your faith. How do you have recovery when you have a mental health issue? God is bigger than our struggles, our weaknesses. How do we communicate with somebody who's going through a mental health problem? How do you talk to them? How do you help them? How do you be one that helps them more than hurts them? And then boundaries. What kind of boundaries do you need to set around yourself so that you are better able to care for these people? So really quick now, this is what you would do. So you would go back to Mental Health Grace Alliance, And then again, as you saw there, you go to the menu bar, you choose groups, you drop down and you click to training and leaders, because this is going to help you to learn how to get the training to lead this grace group, this family grace group. So you go there, and when you click, you're going to end up on this page. And notice it says that you would actually be able to start a grace group in less than 2 hours. In other words, they have 2 hours of training in videos and in short writings in a book that would help you to know how to lead a grace group. So what you do then is to be able to get the material, you simply have to log in by putting in your name and then an email address, and then clicking the access the free training. And then that's going to take you to this page, and it's going to give you an opportunity. We're only going to look at step 1 and 2 because that's all you need to get started. And so you would click on step 1, which says you would download the free guides. And so if you click on it, it'll take you to this page, and then you would download these 2 free guides. One are the training course slides. They're just PowerPoints. So when you watch the video, you can follow the same PowerPoints they're showing on the video and take notes for yourself. And then this book is the Facilitator's Guide. And the Facilitator's Guide gives you detailed information about how to prepare to lead a family grace group. One important page in the Facilitator's Guide is on page 8, and it answers 3 really helpful and important questions. And the first one is, who can attend a family grace group? Who can go to that? Well, a person that can go to the family grace group is anyone who cares about or who is caring for somebody that they know that is having a mental health dilemma or a mental health crisis or a mental health struggle. And so it's anybody who wants to give care to somebody else can go. Well, who can facilitate the group? Who can facilitate the group? Well, it's not needed. You don't need to be a professional. In fact, the materials are designed to be lay-led. And so this is something that you don't need to have a lot of experience other than the compassion and having gone through mental health challenges with somebody else and the desire to lead a group to help other people. You can facilitate it, and you simply are preparing to ask the questions that are in the book. You don't need to have all the answers. And you learn while you're doing. So you don't become an expert right away through the 2 hours of training. The more you do it, the more you learn, and the better you become. And then finally, what grace groups are not. Grace group is not a place where you bring the person that you're caring for that's having a mental health crisis. You don't bring them. This is for you. This is a safe place for you to come where you can receive the care and the help that you desire, the care and the help that you need, where you can ask your questions honestly without being embarrassed because that person is there. But it's also a place that you don't come just to vent all your anger about that person. Okay? Now, it's still okay to share your frustrations. It's still important to share that, but it's not just a place of venting. It's a place of learning. It's a place of compassion. It's a place where you would be able to know better how to treat somebody who's going through a mental health problem. This is really huge in our life right now. As Carol said, we have a family member who has a very severe mental illness. It causes all kinds of conflict for our family, and it's something that we are struggling with. We need help. We need to learn how to treat this person with respect, but at the same time have boundaries for ourselves. We come to our support group and we don't vent, but we do express our frustrations. We share our hurts, and the people that are with us, they understand. People have come to support groups that we've been part of, and they come for the first time, and the thing that most people say after the first meeting is, I can't believe it. I finally found a group that understands what I'm going through. And if you've never been in that place where you have been in a safe way able to share your hurts and know that other people aren't going to judge you, they aren't going to give you advice, they aren't going to tell you what you need to do, they're just going to listen, they're going to care, they're going to cry with you, they're going to pray with you. That's what our COMI group, our support group does. That's what this group would do. And so that's what would happen if you get the materials for training. It will help you to understand these things. Then the 7th step, we said before, was you're going to now watch, the final step is you're going to watch the videos, okay? And so if you click on this, it's going to take you to this page, and they are all on YouTube, Okay, so you could also search it on YouTube, but it's actually easier if you go through the Grace Alliance website, because then you can download everything from there. But it's going to tell you, like, for example, if we're going to lead the Family Grace Group, you watch videos 1, 3, 5, and 6. There's only 6 total videos, but you would watch 1, 3, 5, and 6, and that would train you to be able to lead a Family Grace Group. If you watch video number 1, if you go home today and you watch video number 1, half of it is about what we just went through. How to log in, how to get the materials, how to use it, and what it's for. And so this is excellent, excellent material. The Family Grace Group, the Living Grace Group, and the Redefine Grace. Those are materials that you can learn how to lead by going to this website. And again, these are for smaller, more intimate groups. Now, we realize that not everybody wants a small, intimate 4-month group. Some people may just want to go someplace, check it out, maybe go back, maybe not. So there's another material that we want to share with you. And this material is written and supported by Saddleback Community Church in Orange County, and it's called Hope for Mental Health Community. And in 2000, and I think it was 2014, Rick Warren, the founding pastor, and his wife, Kay, they lost their son, Matthew, who took his life through suicide. And Matthew had struggled with mental illness for most of his adult life, and he just couldn't handle it anymore, and he took his life. And Rick and Kay, other than being heartbroken, were also empowered to start to care more for people with mental health problems. So they started this ministry called the Hope for Mental Health. And Kay Warren now is an advocate and a worldwide speaker on the topic of how to help others help those who are going through mental health problems. She spoke at a mental health conference in Hawaii last year, and I have a short vignette that I want to show you. This is her speaking at a mental health seminar in Hawaii. It's about 2 minutes long, but I want you just to listen and hear what she says that we can do. And I could just say that it's something all of us could do. Just listen carefully about what the community can do to care for those with mental health problems. When she begins, I didn't quite get it at the beginning, but she's going to say, my friend Amy Simpson, okay? She's going to start off by saying that.
Amy Simpson calls mental illness the no casserole illness, because she says when sometimes if people have an illness and they're in the hospital, the church rallies and provides a meal train, and there's whole groups of people take meals and provide physical assistance. But I pretty much feel that if you came to your church this week and said, you know what, I just was given a diagnosis of bipolar, there are very few people that would say, oh, can I bring you dinner tonight? Can I take care of your kids while you go to your doctor visit? Can I help you? Can I run an errand for you? Can I come like mow your lawn? I know you're going through a hard time. Can I do something that shows you that I understand that you are going through a hard time and I want to show up for you? The church can do that. How much money does that cost? Most churches have some kind of a meal train or some kind of a meal thing where people who are in need are provided with some assistance, where people's physical needs are met. It doesn't cost money to begin to stand alongside those who are living with mental illness by just giving a little spare time, a little commitment, a little practical help. Deuteronomy 15:7 from the Message paraphrase says, when you happen on someone who's in trouble or needs help among your people with whom you live in this land that God, your God, is giving you, don't look the other way pretending you don't see him. Don't keep a tight grip on your purse. 1 John 3:17, if you see a brother or sister in need and have the means to do something about it, but turn a cold shoulder and do nothing, what happens to God's love? It disappears, and you made it disappear. Wow. Scripture is tough. It doesn't pull any punches.
So whenever they speak about mental health and whenever they speak about the need to care for each other, Kay and Rick always bring us back to God's Word. They built this ministry based on God's Word, and that's what she was just saying. Scripture holds no punches. It teaches us that we must care for each other. And so their statement of vision for their ministry of mental health says this: the Hope for Mental Health community is a monthly upstream effort to address the need for social connection, meaningful interactions, and accurate psychoeducation for people living with mental illness and their families. These gatherings are led by non-professionals and volunteers with lived experience who extend the radical friendship of Jesus by providing transforming love, support, and hope. And so you see that the vision that they have is very similar to the vision that Grace Alliance has. They want to build education. They want to reduce stigma. They want to build community. But in this case, they do it once a month. They do it through what is an upstream. In other words, Carol's going to explain that. It's online, and you would be able to watch live this community, or you are able to watch it on YouTube and just run it for 2 straight hours, and you would build a community of people once a month who with different topics of mental health needs. The Hope for Community has 3 vision statements, and the first is a place to belong. We all need a place to belong. And in Ephesians 2:19, the Bible says, now you are no longer strangers to God and foreigners to heaven, but you are members of God's very own family, and you belong in God's household with every other Christian. We belong together. We care for each other. It's also a place to learn. And then in Proverbs 3:13, it says, blessed is the person who finds wisdom and who gains understanding. And so it's so important for us to gain understanding about mental health needs and about how to care for others with them. And the third is a place for hope. And can we read this passage together in Lamentations 3:21-24? Let's begin. Yet hope returns when I remember this one thing. The Lord's unfailing love and mercy still continues, fresh as the morning, as sure as the sunrise. The Lord is all I have, so in him I put my hope. And so this is the Hope community, and Carol's going to explain to you a little bit more about how you can be part of it.
Okay. So he mentioned there were 2 ways that you can go see the community. So the first way is you could do it live. So once a month, on the 4th Sunday of the month, they will show it from 1 to 3. And so actually the next session will be the end of this month. So October 27th, you log into your Facebook account, search K. Warren, and it brings you directly to this. And then you just watch it. And then the other way that you can watch it is just on demand, I guess is one way to put it. So you would type in kwarren.com/community, and then you would get onto this web page. And then next, you would download the Mental Health Community Kit, and sick means you can see the misspelled word. And actually, I did download it and put it on the flash drive that you'll be getting. So you can look for that. And then if you keep scrolling, then you just play the desired video that you want to see. So they started doing this the end of last year, so they actually have quite a few right now. And over here, they have the little handouts that you can print. So what they do is they have discussion questions, as well as for today. For this day, they had a lament worksheet. So if you look in your handouts, this is all the material provided by Hope for Mental Health Community. And this first sheet, the yellow one, it says staff and volunteer agenda example. So this is how they sort of structure their events. So they'll do welcome and prayer, a wellness tool, or some kind of devotion. They'll have their table discussion number 1, and then sometimes they'll do a testimony, and then they'll have somebody share. So it's like a psychologist, a psychiatrist, some inspirational speaker, And then they have another discussion, which is part of the community, and usually they have a Q&A time, which is very helpful. So that's pretty much the agenda for that. So this goldenrod paper, it's a quick start for both the Grace Alliance and this mental health community. And so this is a picture of what they play during the actual video. So they'll talk, and then during the table discussion time, they'll show these questions, and then they put a timer at the bottom. So this particular discussion time was like 10 minutes, and then it'll just keep counting down, and then when the reaches 0, then the next speaker comes up. That's pretty much how they do it. So yeah, there's a lot of the material is on the flash drive, and what's nice is that they have like topics like how to get through the holidays, PTSD, substance abuse, depression, and anxiety. And here's an example of one of the things that they showed. It was a message by Aaliyah Joy, and so she wrote this book called Glorious Weakness. And so it wasn't necessarily based on her struggle with bipolar, because she talked about how she was poor, went through sexual abuse, as well as bipolar. So she talked about that. And so because of that, I was able to relate to her story. So I actually saw it a couple times in preparation for this, because she struggles with bipolar regularly, and as well as it's just an ongoing thing for her. And she just recently tweeted 5 days ago, I guess, this. He said, "My last post about mental illness, which I didn't tweet because I was offline due to mental illness, I am unraveled and raw, tender and weak in spots like fruit gone soft and spotty. My skin slipping too easily when pushed, and the world never stops pushing." So you know that she's it's a hard time, because it was only like a week ago. And she also said, so hey, it's been a while. I've been battling suicidal ideation again. Surviving didn't feel worth it. Bipolar is a terrorist of mind and body. I recently turned 41 and told myself to hang on another minute, then another and another, because hope rebounds. Surviving is worth it today. And so she was just a really spot on speaker about that. And you can look at the other handouts later. One is a wellness tool that's in yellow, and if you flip it, those are the questions that they talked about that particular day. And so the next thing that we do here at our church is the Comey group, which Curtis had mentioned, and we meet twice a month here on Mondays from 7:30 to 9. And so actually we're going to have our next group the November 4th, I guess. It will change the first Monday just for November. And basically what we do is we have a time, basically our Comey group, which is caregivers of mentally ill, is patterned after NAMI. So it's sort of like the FaithNet version of NAMI. So we will have welcome and prayer, group guidelines. We'll just like read over guidelines like, keep everything confidential, be respectful, listen attentively, be empathetic. And we actually read the NAMI principles of support. And there's usually a time of education and devotion. But the bulk of the time is we spend time sharing, which is a little different than the other groups, because we actually spend a whole hour almost talking about the things that we're going through. And so that's what we do, and so there's another handout for that called on this sheet here. So you could read that on your own. And let's see. The next thing is we have our flash drive. And so, like we said before, every church will get one, and if you didn't come with a church, then you get your own. So on this one, the salmon colored one, it gives a list of all the different files, categories that we have. So we have a whole folder for Grace Alliance, a whole folder for Hope for Mental Health, and then we actually have one for clergy. So it's just like different articles, how clergy can deal with the people in their church. My Quiet Cave, we just passed out some color handouts that talks about another similar ministry because they do their own communities, and then some miscellaneous things. So this is what it sort of looks like when you open it up. And next to Curtis.
One of the things that we were concerned about was just giving you too much information. And I don't know if we failed or we succeeded. I guess it go either way. We didn't want to give you too much information, but there's just so much information that we still wanted to share with you. Carol and I were fortunate that a few months ago, we were invited to go down to Saddleback Church to meet with their pastor of mental illness, or their mental health pastor. His name is David Mandani, and he's an amazing man. He is in charge of their worldwide ministry of mental health. So he works with Kay Warren and helps to run the Hope for Mental Health community. He himself has schizophrenia. And so this is just a testimony that people with mental illness can live a normal life. People with mental struggles can still carry on important jobs. When I was in Orange County, there was a young man who came to our church who had a very severe case of schizophrenia. Now, he was not able to maintain a regular job, but he was able to seek help. He was able to get help from the county. He was able to live in a county home. He was able to come to church. He was able to pursue relationships. But we had to learn how to befriend him. We had to be comfortable with being around somebody who would just start cussing at a moment's notice. I remember one time I was talking to him on the phone, and he said, "Just a minute, I have to wait till the voices stop." And so he actually knows how to build the communication with those who care for him and let us know what he's going through as well. And so this is just such a vital and important way for us to be able to care for people. And we want you to learn. We know that you're all at different places. Some of you right now might just be really, really hurting. You're not at a place where you want to give care as much as you're at a place where you need care. And that's just so amazing that you're here. We hope that you will find that care, you will seek it, you will share with others. After today, you'd feel safe to be able to share that. There's a number of books that Carol and I do recommend. If you opened up your booklet to page 28, you'll see about 7 books there that we recommend. But I just want to highlight 2 of them for you today. One of them is called Grace for the Afflicted. It's written by a medical doctor, psychiatrist, Dr. Matthew Stanford. And in this, he talks about both understanding the medical aspects of mental illnesses, the biological aspects of mental illnesses, the reality that these are just like you might have liver disease, you can have brain disease. And when you have brain disease, it can lead to many other forms of mental illness, like what we talked about, bipolar, OCD, depression. It can lead to schizophrenia, but it can also be treated. So when I'm on my medications, my depression is much less. And so he explains and helps you to understand how that works and why that works. Another book written by in a non-technical way is written by an author. Her name is Amy Simpson. Her job is writing books and articles. Her mom had severe mental illness growing up. Their family had a lot of problems growing up. And so this is a great book to understand anecdotally what families go through when they have mental illness in the family. At the end of both books, the authors give churches ideas of what they can do to help others. So if you open up and you try to find on the right side this handout, on one side it says mental illness, and it says mental illness on the church on the top. And on one side, it's by Matthew Stanford, and you can see some of the things that he says churches can do. This is a summary of what he has at the end of the book. If you turn it over, you'll see again a summary of the things that Amy Simpson talks about. This is the same Amy Simpson that Kay Warren was talking about. And so the community that cares for people with mental illness is very close. When you meet somebody who's going through a mental illness problem, you can bond, you can care, you can share tears, you can share hope, you can share the pain with each other without judgment. And so this is just two very helpful books. But there's one other book that didn't make it into publication. It's an older book, but recently has been refreshed and renewed, and it's called Why Do Christians Shoot Their Wounded? Why do Christians shoot their wounded? This is a book about mental illness in the church, and it's called Helping, Not Hurting Those with Emotional Difficulties. When I was first going through my problems with mental illness, I would hear things like, well, why don't you have more faith? Why don't you just pray more? If you are a Christian, you shouldn't have this problem. And it would only make things worse for me. It was very judgmental, and it was very painful to hear these things. When I went into community that said, no, it's both. You do want to enliven your faith. I want to help you to grow in faith. But at the same time, you need to go see a medical doctor. You need to go see somebody who can care for you, a therapist, somebody who can help you. It was a combination. So it's not saying no faith. Faith is obviously extremely important. That's why we call it Enlighten. We want to shine Jesus' light on mental illness. We want to help people. We want people to be encouraged, and we want people to be blessed. We want people to know how they can help others. And so if you're in a church tradition that's ever said that, mental illness is a sin, mental illness is just of the devil, if you just had more faith, you wouldn't have these problems, this is just a really helpful book to explain how the faith community can really understand and see the ways that we care for those who have mental health problems. Just like if somebody has cancer, we would show so much compassion to them. Carol has to take medication, or her bipolar will take over her brain again. To her, it's just like taking insulin for somebody who would have diabetes. But for her, it manages her symptoms, just as the medication I take helps to manage mine. And so it doesn't mean we don't have faith. In fact, faith is so much more important to us, and we can actually embrace our faith better because we have clearer minds. And we are able to do what we're doing today because of that. And so we just want to encourage you to begin and to care. There's one more really, really helpful handout in your folder, and if you pull it out, it's called The Quick Reference on Mental Health for Faith Leaders. It's a very colorful outline. I don't know if I can find mine. Okay. And so on the top of it, you would see that's called the Quick Reference Guide for Mental Health for Faith Leaders. And even though this would be for, of different religions, it's still very, very helpful for the church. And so you see some statistics there at the top, but you also see some ways that you could learn to observe the signs of people who are going through mental health problems. And then once you observe those signs, it tells you how do you communicate with them in a non-judgmental way? How do you communicate with them in a way that would help them with their mental health struggles? On the back, you would be able to then say, this is very serious. This is what I need to do. This is how I can begin to help them right away. If it's extremely serious, you can see on both sides it talks about suicide, and you want to call 911. If they're talking about suicide, you feel that they're in imminent danger of hurting themselves. but it gives also ways to make a good referral and to get continuing professional help for them, medical help for them. So it's just a really great resource. And if you go to their website down here, psychiatry.org/faith, you'll see they have a lot of resources that are available to help you to learn about mental illnesses, but also help you to learn about helping other people. You can do it. God can do this through you. God can use your faith community to help others. Carol and I are here for you as well. And so later on in our closing session, we're going to ask you to fill out this yellow sheet called Next Steps. And if you want us to be in contact with you, or you want to contact us, put your information there. You'll see that there's different ways that you might be able to come and learn more about our support group, our COMI group, on November 4th or November 18th. But if you want to do something in your church and you have questions, Carol and I would be really happy to talk to you and to your church. So thank you so much. We want to just end with a time of Q&A. If anybody has any questions they want to ask. Yes, sir.
I'm a retired pastor. I pastor the church down the street for like 10 years. And I think I have two experiences with churches. One in Washington, D.C. It was a very caring church, but we attracted a number of people, I would say, with mental problems. We didn't know what we were doing. And it was kind of a negative to some other people that they would come to our church. I wish I had heard your information earlier. I would have known what to do. I didn't know what to do. So some people are turned off by it. So that's one thing. And I moved from that church to this church. And this church was full of high-functioning, wealthy people. And there was no place for anyone that wasn't high-functioning and wealthy. And this church didn't attract people like that, to their loss. And I commend you on your honesty and vulnerability in what you are doing, because not every church welcomes people with problems.
Well, they welcomed a pastor with the problem. And they knew about it. So that certainly helps. In my last church, with this young man that had schizophrenia, that wasn't, responding well to treatment. Our church knew that he had a problem, and we let our elders know, and we always had somebody with him when he was at church, in case something erupted. We had a man with PTSD in our church, and people were with them. So the more you talk about it, the more there's hope, and the more there's help. We also...
When you're full of high-functioning, wealthy people, they don't even want to hear about it.
Right. And that is unfortunate. I think, you're the pastor, it's a little hard, but I guess you could just say that, we need to build understanding in the church and try to build a lay movement in it. It's harder for the pastor maybe just to do it alone, but you can do that. You can go to your pastor and go, we need to care. If 1 out of every 4 or 1 out of every 5 adults in Ventura County has a diagnosable mental illness, that means there are 200,000 people in Ventura County. That's just our little 1 million population. So this is a huge mission field for the church.
And I think going back to what you were saying on this lavender paper, is talking about, what can the church do, and, because oftentimes we don't talk about it in the church setting, and like even for a pastor or any of us, we can just say the word mental illness, or, let's pray for, people with mental health issues, and we don't know their names, just do it in your prayer meeting or small group, and just begin small, just talk about it.
And even when you ask for prayer requests, just say, for those of you who are dealing with physical issues, we want to pray for you. Those who are dealing with mental issues, we want to pray for you. Those of you who have emotional issues, we want to pray for you. Let us know how we can help. And you can say it very casually as that. Yes, Daniel?
I don't know if this is too pointed a question, but do you guys have any resources for helping folks deal with religious delusion?
I don't. But Jackie, do you have any information on that?
It might be the same as dealing with any delusion.
Okay. So Jackie is a therapist, and so I don't know if she has some.
Might be a Christian psychiatrist.
So, but I'd be happy to do research on that with you, and we'll see what we can find. Because I certainly had religious illusions myself. Yes, yes, ma'am.
Do you guys have resources, maybe a little more, I guess more about on like theological side that kind of helps Christians integrate
Right.
the two, especially you know, I have more friends that are on the side where they want to look at the spiritual aspect or
Right.
the sin aspects, and they're less inclined to acknowledge
Right.
the clinical aspect. So I don't know, do you have a reference?
Yes,
like
actually,
website
there are
or-
some podcasts. There's a podcast called Faith, and I think it's called The Cross Section Between Faith and Mental Health. And I can get that information to you. Also, Dr. Stanford, his book talks about that, Grace for the Afflicted. He talks about that, as does Troubled Minds. They both, and obviously the other book, the whole book is about that. Yes, that does. Yes, that does also. It just helps you to see that we actually see people with so much emotional distress in Scripture. We have a whole psalm book, you know, where 40% of it is lament and people in great emotional pain. Yeah. So, yes.
I'm sorry, since we're out of time, there is a little blue slip in the booklet that has Q&A or questions where you can write your question and then they can like put it in the basket.
Yeah, there's a basket on top of the piano, one in the fellowship hall at the resource table, and also one in the lobby. Thank you so much for being here. Now, Joyce is our room host, so one member from every church, please come and see her, and you'll get a flash drive, okay? So thank you so much for joining us. We'll see you in 15 minutes in the sanctuary.